Johnny, thank you so much for having us over and agreeing to talk to us today. For those of you who might be new to the channel or to these videos, what we're doing in these interviews is we're focusing on music business and professionalism and basically what it is to be a professional guitar player in this day and age.
Right.
So Johnny, let's just start with a question that I like asking everybody. You're a professional guitar player, you make your living doing this. What does your day-to-day look like? You wake up in the morning, and what does a normal day look like?
Well, I live, eat, and sleep and breathe guitar, man. So it's a constant. Kimmy will actually laugh and say, Johnny's got a guitar even in the bathroom. There's Kiesels all over my house. But to be honest with you, man, my day I wake up in the morning, put on the coffee, do my workout, because I've lost 140 pounds, believe it or not. And of course, I'm still a big guy. I got a long way to go, Cody. But then instantly it's grab a guitar. And of course, now that COVID-19 has hit, a lot has changed.
Right.
We're not out on the road like we used to be. But within the last 5 or 6 years, a lot has slowed down on the road anyway. I think, obviously, the road work's not what it used to be. And,
Sure.
And that means, obviously, money in taking a full band out on the road all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but since COVID has hit, I recently moved to Chatham, Virginia here in this beautiful old home here.
Beautiful home.
Thank you, man. And people are like, well, why did you leave Nashville? Because Nashville's where it's at. It's happening. It's Music City, USA. But then again, country music is not country music like it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being a chicken picker, man, I know, you know exactly what I'm referring to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying that change is not important. It is, and music evolves. And so it's not that I hate it in any way. It's just, for me, it wasn't a perfect fit anymore. So moving to Chatham, man, life has gotten a little more loose for me.
Okay.
In the respect that I get to go fishing with Kimmy's dad more often, get to see family more often. But my day usually starts out with a good old pot of coffee and a workout, and then a guitar is instantly in my hand. Now, that could be me teaching most of the morning. Usually my lessons, if I'm teaching during the day, it's usually 10 in the morning until about 4 in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
And then I will come down here and do the studio thing from 4 till bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in writing my new album here and recording all the instruments myself, the studio has been a massive thing in my life too. It's a new constant for me.
Right.
But I also think it's been the thing that's kept me the most sane through this whole COVID-19 thing as well.
Yeah.
So that's what a typical Johnny day looks like, man. It's up and a guitar in my hand after my workout and pretty much all day long.
When you say a guitar in your hand, one of the things that I like learning about personally is other guitar players' practice habits and how people practice. Do you have a set routine? Is it pick up the guitar and whatever just comes to you? Like, how do you start your day with that? Or do you have one?
Yes, I actually do, man.
Okay.
The first thing I do in the morning is, before I even grab the guitar, is stretch like crazy.
Okay.
Because being 45 years old now, man, I was always that kid that, hey, Johnny Hiland's in the house, let's get him up to play, let's...
Mm-hmm.
And I would just jump up at any given moment, grab a guitar, and start playing.
Yeah.
But over the years, it's really had an impact on my hands. It's really affected me.
Really?
To where I've had to switch to a thumb pick. And I was a flat picker all my life.
I was going to ask you about that.
And it really, I've had hand issues over the years, but, nothing ever with the right hand per se.
Okay.
So I started having some index finger and thumb trouble where I could not put any pressure on the bottom of a flat pick. And so, anyway, all I'm letting everybody know that's watching this is stretching your hands and your arms are very, very important before you even touch a guitar. And I would recommend that if you're a youngster and you're guitarded like myself, where you love to play all the time, just do yourself the favor and stretch as often as you can.
Okay.
Now, my practice regimen starts out in the morning with obviously stretching and then just warm-ups. Mm-hmm. And there's one warm-up I'll show you, Cody, that's a lot of fun for those that want a hybrid pick and warm up their left hand at the same time.
Okay.
It's good for developing both.
Okay.
But I do my stretches and my warm-ups. And then it doesn't matter if I have 2 or 3 or 4 hours or however many hours a day to practice. I always go on an hour regiment.
Okay.
So I will take the next half hour after the first 15 minutes of stretching to just learn new things.
Oh, wow.
And that may be going on YouTube and watching Eric Johnson or watching Steve Vai or watching Brent or Red or whomever that catches my eye that day. And it could be something as simple as me watching a Danny Gatton video and hearing one lick that I just need to have.
Right.
So
he's got a lot of those.
He's got a ton of those, yeah. And so frankly, man, for me these days, it's more checking on YouTube, seeing what I can grab for inspiration. But there are a lot of great things on YouTube as far as, learning jazz lines or just picking up lines. Trying to think of the old boy from England that's just a phenomenal player, man.
There's a lot of those. Guthrie.
Yeah, his name is slipping me. Well, Guthrie Govan for one, yes.
Yeah.
And I love Guthrie. He's
Right.
a dear person. Gosh, his name's slipping me. But anyway, I always find something cool to learn. Now, granted, does that happen every day? No, because my days get filled with fishing and other things. And I found that I needed that part from my life as well. I needed to go fishing. I needed to see family. I needed to do things that I had sacrificed so long by living in Nashville. But yeah, my normal guitar day is trying to find something new to learn.
Okay.
And now, as I'm applying that, so now you have 10 to 15 minutes of warm up, 30 minutes of new stuff, and then the last bit of that hour could be 10 to 15 minutes, could be applying the new things you've learned to your existing playing. Now, that has led me to actually write new songs. Like my whole new album I've written.
Right.
I mean, I've had 6 or 7 albums out, and I'm like, gosh, you run out of song ideas, and so I always love to find new inspiration, and there's a lot of cats that do that for me, man. So I've been blessed. Now, granted, being legally blind, I can't see to really learn on YouTube.
Sure.
But I sure do have a set of ears on me, man.
Right,
So
right.
I've learned, I've been blessed to be able to pick up things that way. So now, okay, so there's your hour.
Okay.
And it may be that I get a song idea, I come down the studio, I play it, record it, and then I might say, well, gosh, I've taught a few lessons now. I'm down in the studio. I think I'll do the rest of this song tomorrow. I need another hour to just play. So I start over again. I re-stretch, I re-warm up, even if I've been playing all day.
Yeah.
So when I actually teach lessons, that's the first thing I teach my students is always go back, stretch, warm up again. And they're like, well, why, man, if you've been playing all day? I'm like, because stretching is good for you, and you need to do it. Our human hands were not designed to play, as fast as chicken pickers do all your life. And I've been playing guitar since I was 2.5, man. So it's time that I finally start, like taking care of my body.
Yeah.
You need to take care of these hands.
Right.
So yeah, that's what my day consists of, man, and that's how I practice.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna move a little bit more in the direction of business conversation for a second.
Okay, sure.
I know that. Well, actually, maybe the place we should start, and just for the viewers, I never want to know specific numbers.
Okay.
But in 2020, could you give us kind of a rough idea of how you make your living right now? I know you mentioned lessons, but I know that you also have worked with companies like TrueFire before.
Oh, yes.
And you do, you do a lot of recording for other people too.
I
so
do.
Can you kind of give us a rundown of maybe 50% of my income comes from teaching or something like that, just to kind of give people an idea?
I think right now my 2 main sources of income are, and I have 3 of them that I'll get into.
Okay.
The first one definitely being teaching.
Right.
And through my Facebook Live Q&A I do every Sunday, I have definitely garnered a lot more students from that. And it's been a blessing, man, because I don't, I guess I don't teach in the traditional fashion. So a lot of my students could be once a month or once every 2 months. But then again, I want people to learn exactly what I'm showing them. And I kind of take them on a learning journey, if you will.
Sure.
Into chicken picking and covering a lot of ground with Don Rich and Roy Nichols and James Burton and Albert Lee and Brent and the whole, everybody. And so, what I've become, I guess, is the guitar psychologist, because I change people's mind on how they think when they play.
All right.
But, teaching has been such a main thing for me as far as my income is concerned for probably the last 25 years.
Wow. Okay.
And then, of course, I have to give a big thank you to my dear friend, Mr. Kenny Thurman. By the grace of God, Cody, when I first moved up here to Chatham, I was thinking, my gosh, what's going to really happen to my career?
Right.
Now that I'm not in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Within a month of being here, of course, we got all moved in, and my wife and I were just, like gangbusters trying to set the house up and get comfortable.
Right.
Well, sitting one night, I got a call from Brother Kenny Thurman, and I've known Kenny, for the past 20 years in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously known as one of the best sound men in the music business. He's incredible. And yes, he's run sound for me and my band a few times. And but I've known Kenny from the Grand Ole Opry. He's worked with everyone from Vince Gill to Mark Chestnut, Jimmy O'Neill, Phil Vassar, Mike Henderson and the Blue Bloods.
Mm-hmm.
The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But he called me up one night, and I just thought he was going to be one of those guys going, "What did you leave Nashville for?" And he called me, and he said, "Hey, man, a little bird told me that you went to our buddy Benny's house and went to the jam he has." And I said, "Yeah, man, I heard Ricky Van Shelton was coming out, and I know Ricky lives up in this area." And I said, "Yeah, man, I went out to see Bo Heatherly and Zach Burnett and all my buddies up here, and just kind of let all the local musicians know, hey, I'm here."
Right.
Yeah. Well, he said, "Man, I heard that you were at Benny's." He said, "And you've moved to Chatham." I said, "Yeah, I sure have, man." He said, "Well, you realize we live about 16 miles apart from each other." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, man, I know we've known each other a long time, but," he said, "I live in Danville, man."
Wow.
And I was like, just floored, man. I mean, obviously, that comes from God when you get a blessing like that. And then I was thinking, well, man, I had to ask why he moved back home and this, that, and the other. But I shared with him my dream of having the, quote, blind man studio.
Okay.
And obviously, Brother Kenny knew exactly what I meant instantly. And, when most people say that, I kind of go, yeah, sure. Because not many people know how much I can see. Or,
right.
And it changes with lighting and all kinds of different things.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, "Brother, I can," he said, "man, we can put you together a studio. You just come up with some cash. We'll go shopping." He said, "with the things that we're going to put in your studio, I'll have you up and running in 3 hours." And I said, "Me recording on my own, engineering in 3?" I said, "Yeah, okay, dude." But he did.
Yeah.
He literally did. And obviously, before you guys go, you're more than welcome to take some still shots of the studio and what
Definitely.
I'm doing.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I was floored.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time in my entire life of 45 years now, the blind guy can record on his own.
Wow. Yeah.
And hence doing my whole new record by myself. Yeah. And, we did a record with KT. We put his first album out. But that has really brought forth another income stream for me, in that through my Facebook Lives and doing other things on social media, which is now a huge thing, I have been able to let people know, hey, I'm here and I'll do full band tracks for you. If you're a singer-songwriter or you're an artist and you need something cut, let me know. If you want me to play guitar on something, great, but I also, play drums, bass, keyboards, banjo, whatever else you want. So that has brought a lot of work in 2020, which I've been real blessed at, man.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, we opened up my studio last October, and I've done over 90 songs.
Wow.
To include my album and
Sure.
KT's album, but I mean, we've done a lot of music in here.
Yeah.
And all tracked by me. All, drums, bass, and the whole 9 yards.
Mm.
So that's been part of my income as much as teaching. And then, of course, through my endorsements, I certainly get mailbox money at times,
Sure.
which I'm blessed by. And, of course, the great folks at True Fire, Hal Leonard, they now distribute the old Hot Licks videos that I did.
Yeah. I've got a copy.
So I have done a lot of instruction stuff through the years. I did 2 Hot Licks videos back in the day. I did a 20 Licks course with Jam Track Central in the UK. And I've done, I think about 11 books with Mel Bay, books and CDs. And then, of course, have 3 courses out with True Fire.
Yeah.
So I've been real blessed in the instruction world to be able to put out a lot of my teaching and what I do with that. And so, of course, that helps with the mailbox money as well.
Sure.
So that's really how I make my income right now. It's
Awesome.
Where we're not on the road and I'm not doing a lot of sessions in Nashville. I've still been able to do them here. So what a blessing that's been.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I want to follow up on is something that you just mentioned at the end there. And this is something that you and I have gone off on tangents before on.
Oh, yes, sir.
So I'm just going to open the door and see and let you walk through it if you want. But
Sure.
let's talk about endorsements for a minute. And, you've had a phenomenal career as a guitar player, and with that comes endorsements. And
Yes.
if you could tell us a couple things, maybe some things that you look for in a company that you want to work with or that wants to work with you, and maybe without naming any names or anything like that, maybe some of the pitfalls to watch out for if someone watching this is in a position to one day be as fortunate as you.
Well, man, that's a great question, Cody, and I'm certainly glad to answer it, brother. I have had a massively blessed career, and truly, man, my first manager, Mac Wilson, was the man who really taught me about endorsements, and was the first man to really reach out and take me to NAMM shows and get me involved in meeting companies. And from my first NAMM show on, I mean, I've done several, music messes in Frankfurt, Germany, and the Tokyo Music Fair I went to one time. One thing I will say, my favorite endorsement right now, obviously, is with Kiesel Guitars.
Right.
I've been very blessed to finally, after all these years, find my guitar home. And as I told you earlier, man, I'll be buried with a Kiesel guitar in my hand. I love my Johnny Hiland model to pieces. It's an amazing guitar. But to be honest with you, the first thing that I look for in any amazing endorsement is the people involved. The Kiesel Guitar Company obviously is the Kiesel family. And the way that Jeff and everybody looks at it is, if you buy a Kiesel guitar, you are a part of the family. And so all of us artists that endorse Kiesel guitars look at all of the folks that have bought a Kiesel the same way. They're a family member. And I love that side of it. I love, in fact, I love it so much that I have actually told people where Kiesel sells their guitars direct. I'm like, look, if you're ever on the fence about a Johnny model or any other Kiesel, I'm like, anybody would be welcome to come by my house and play my Kiesels. Because, most people think, well, an artist gets a different kind of guitar than the buying public or the consumer. That's not the case. This exact guitar right here was actually brought to me at a NAMM show because Kiesel started building my pickups in-house. But this guitar was hanging on in the Kiesel booth at a NAMM show. And I was fortunate enough to be able to bring it home and check out the pickups and make sure, they were what I needed.
Sure.
And, of course, Kiesel nailed them.
Yeah.
But to be honest, a lot of the guitars that you see here on this rack are what I have actually purchased from the Guitars in Stock page on KieselGuitars.com.
Okay.
So, but I guess the most important thing about endorsements, Cody, is this. A lot of people think, or a lot of artists think, that because you are an artist, that you are owed something free because you are who you are.
Right.
That's not necessarily the case. I think where artists go wrong a lot of the times is they expect something for free and they don't want to have to do anything else for it. To me, being an artist and really jumping into a, quote, full-on endorsement means that the artist has to give back to the company as much as the company, has given product and gear to them. But it's not just product and gear, it's support. When my new record comes out, Kiesel will put it on their, social media, and they'll, like when my Christmas album came out last year, they had it as the when you get put on hold, when you call into Kiesel, they had my Christmas record playing. That's support. That means something. And with Kiesel guitars, I obviously have that, so I'm so blessed by that. But then again, it's so important for me to keep doing my Facebook Lives and showing my Kiesel guitars off, doing little Instagram posts, which I'm getting better at. My bass player TJ fusses at me. He's like, son, you ain't caught up on social media, boy. You got a long way to go. And I am learning, man, and I am an old school kind of artist, man, but I'm trying to catch up as best I can.
Yeah.
But I do believe it's very important to give back to those who help you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of artists fail in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens sometimes is an artist has that attitude and they get a lot of things from the company, and the company sees that the artist is not giving back in any way.
Yeah.
Well, then the love kind of stops, right? The endorsement really doesn't mean anything at that point if it's one-sided.
Right.
So when you lose that love with the company, you might as well separate.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to help you and you're not going to help them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one thing I've always kept in mind with anybody that I've endorsed through the years is it's my job as an endorser to, if I find an issue with something, call them and tell them about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not vocally or publicly put it on Facebook and
Yeah.
say anything, but go to the company and say, hey man, this has been an issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's not with other people, but here's something you need to be made aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with, I think when it comes to if you have an issue with somebody from the company,
right?
They're not treating you well or something, you need to let everybody know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where it becomes a family.
Mm-hmm.
That's where where the relationship becomes really tight. And so I've been, most people have, the trolls on YouTube and stuff have been very brash with me about being a guitar jumper, if you will, or there's another name for it, but I won't go to that.
Right.
But, frankly, I'll say this. There's a lot of things that can happen. When you have management, if the company's not agreeing with how your management treats things, that can pose a problem. If you're, if one side or the other is not holding up their end of the deal, that causes a problem. There's all kinds of things that are involved with what can make an endorsement go south.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to be really careful and treat the endorsement as, hey, I've become part of this family. And so for them to enable me to do that, then I have to stand up on my end and create the best relationship I can and keep pushing their product. But now that here again, most people would say, well, is it all about the product? No, it's about the people behind the product. Mm-hmm. I love Jeff Kiesel and every person that works in that factory because every day they build the finest guitars ever made in my eyes.
Yeah.
So frankly, I love all of them, but then again, I also love people who believe in Kiesel guitars like I do.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives us a common ground.
Yeah.
So really, in essence, it should not be that hard. But in a lot of cases, there are things that get in the way, Cody, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but then again, I'm talking from anything from a pick to a guitar to an amplifier rig to pedals to, and some people say, well, man, pedals are like ear candy and they're all subjective. Every distortion pedal sounds different. So does that mean you endorse 5 different companies that make a dirt pedal? Well, not necessarily. But I've had people in this business that have come up to me and said, man, I really love your playing, brother. I'd love for you to try my pedal.
Yeah.
Well, sure, I'd be glad to. Does that mean I fully endorse the company? No. It means they were kind enough to give me something and I made them a video in return or something like that.
Sure.
So it's, I just think, man, it really, as long as artists consider the company to be family and that it's a two-way street. They show you love, you give love back.
Awesome.
And that's how this should work.
Awesome. So let's kind of stay on this subject of relationships and business decisions. One of the other things that you and I have talked about before, and feel free to shut this question down if you don't want to answer it, is when it comes to sort of, I guess, creating your brand and how that ties into sort of record deals that you've had in the past and decisions that you've made with your music. Specifically, what are your feelings when it comes to maybe being a genre-specific guitar player or not?
Well, I can certainly share with you a time when, obviously, my first record came out with Steve Vai's label, Favored Nations. And, gosh, man, who doesn't love Steve Vai's playing?
Right.
He's incredible. And as a label owner, he was so forthcoming with encouragement and with advice and one of the first pieces of advice he ever gave me, Cody, was pick a lane and drive, Johnny. Now, in saying that, have I ever done that? No. But here again, I will say, man, that lends itself back to the fact that as a kid growing up, I loved so many different genres and worked so hard to be able to play all of them, to be a session player in Nashville, that I can't just write in one style. I write all over the place. And so I think Steve really was right in that. And when I meet young guitar players and they ask my advice, the first thing I say to them is what Steve told me. Pick a lane and drive. If you want to be a blues cat, be a blues cat. If you want to be a chicken picker, do that. If you want to shred. But, but then again, it's very hard. I know for myself, it's been extremely hard to just pick one genre and go with it. Granted, I'm known as a chicken picker, and I'm grateful for that. And do I shred like Steve Vai or Vinnie Moore? No, not anymore. I could when I was a teenager, and but then again, I still love to create rock music.
Yeah.
The other thing that Steve did for me was taught me how to write a proper instrumental.
Okay.
And what I'm referring to with that is, Steve said, look, man, if you want to have your songs on radio, write melodies that stick in people's minds. Write stuff that's not solo based with a small melody. Write a big melody that sticks in people's minds, and then put your solos in throughout. But write a melodic song every time. And so I remember when I sent in Until We Meet Again, he was so, yeah, that's it, that's right, that's what I want. And he was helping me in really crafting a proper song. I really give him a lot of thanks, man, for that advice early on, and I think it's really helped craft me into the songwriter I am today. But then again, I still, I sing more in my shows because fans have asked for it, and of course, what does an artist want to do is please their fans, right? So,
right.
So I try to put vocal songs on my albums too, and there is a difference in writing a normal vocal song versus writing an instrumental. So really, man, from day one with Favored Nations, what I learned was it's really important to take the advice of the people who know the business better than you. And don't be afraid to go, oh, well, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I need that advice. Yeah. And I will say, man, I've been through 3 or 4 managers in my career, and people are like, oh, man, he doesn't hold on to a manager well. The fact is, man, sometimes you work with a person long enough to where you almost feel like they've taken you as far as they can. And so I've always left on good terms with management and learned a lot from each one of them in different, different years of my career and what I was into and what I was doing. And, so I'm grateful for all of that interaction, even the stuff that people are like, oh, that was a bad time in your life. Well, sure. And you can look at it as, I could be real disgruntled and real, jaded about everything in the music business as to all the downfalls I've had to face. But I look at that as, what did I learn from it? What can I take away from this? And to be honest, man, I've been real blessed in being able to learn from every downfall I've faced. And so I'm grateful for that. Now, getting back to the label thing, I did my first album with Vi's label, Favored Nations, but then I did Loud and Proud the next year with no label. And in 2006, that was kind of a wrong thing to do, because putting out an album independently was, it was okay, but really wasn't the proper time to do that. So then in 2011, Mike Varney, my buddy Jason Macedo, got me hooked up with Mike Varney, and I signed as the only country artist, or quote country artist, with Shrapnel Records, and did the All Fired Up album with, on the Favored Nations, I had Billy Sheehan, Pat Torpey from Mr. Big, and then I had Bill Holloman from Danny Gatton's band play keyboards and sax. Well, then on the Shrapnel record, I had Jason, good gracious, Jason went with me, Jason Macedo, my buddy I was telling you about. We went out to Cotati, California to Prairie Sun Studios, but I had Stu Hamm on bass on that album. And, of course, just a monster. Jesse Bradman on keyboards, who I guess played with the band Boston for a while. And Steve Vai's drummer. Jeremy Colson.
Okay.
I had to think of his name for a minute. But he's a beast. I love you, Jeremy. But anyway, just an amazing, amazing band on that record as well. But here again, I had written the songs just prior to doing the albums. So they were, Barnyard Breakdown. Bakersfield Bound, and Gone
one of my
But Not
favorite
Forgotten.
albums. Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. And I'm real proud of that album to this day. And I really loved how Mike Varney let me do my thing. There were days, man, where we were in cutting, and I'd look back at Mike and be like, "Man, is that part okay, Mike?" And this was I couldn't really see him, but this was him. Had his laptop on his lap, and he'd literally fallen asleep. But he trusted me, which I was so blessed by. I mean, that was how often do you have a man like Mike Varney from Shrapnel Records trust you enough to fall asleep during your session? Now, granted, he laughed. He's like, "No, it wasn't that it was bad, brother." He's like, I was like, "Man, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's creating." And so to have that trust with him was so amazing. But I'm also going to say this, Cody. Bottom line is, it's the relationships. Granted, my career's had tons of pitfalls, downfalls. I've been through different management time after time. Had different forms of the Johnny Hiland bands, but it's all about relationships. It's all about people. Because really, we're all helping each other at times. And there's stuff you and I've even talked about where I'm like, "Man, Cody's got a good point there." And so you learn from everybody that you talk to. And so I think what you have to do is be able to take the artist thing with all the, with all the hoopla behind being an artist.
Right.
And you need to just swallow your own pride and say, "Man, I really appreciate his advice." Or whomever it may be.
Yeah.
Whoever it may be. Could be a buddy talking to you at an AM show. So, frankly, man, I really think bottom line when it comes to the business side of things, it's been all based on relationships. And I think that's the biggest thing. I still love Steve Vai to this day. I'm still a huge Steve Vai fan. But the fact that he gave me my first record deal and believed in me that much, just like Mike Varney, man, it was amazing to be a part of Shrapnel Records and being a chicken picker.
Yeah.
I've just been amazed. Now, granted, since then, I've released all my albums independently, and, of course, they didn't get played out much, didn't make a lot of money off them, but it's okay. It's not about that at the end of the day. It's about knowing that people have your music and they're playing it because they enjoy it, and that's the bottom line.
Well, that's one thing that actually I'd like to follow up on a little bit. You started talking a little bit about how the mid-2000s wasn't not a good time to put out a record without a label as an instrumental or largely instrumental guitar player.
Right.
2020, is it different?
Yes, extremely. And I love the fact now that younger guys have been reaching out to me. "Hey, Johnny, would you produce a song for me? Would you help me track a song? Would you help this and that?" The advice I give kids nowadays is, man, put your music out on your own. There's so much more of an open platform now for new music to be released via social media. You can promote it easier. Where before labels had to spend a lot of money to get your record out there,
right? And
to get people to know it even existed, that your album was actually on the market. There was a lot of money that went into that, and a lot of, but nowadays kids, and I tell kids this, you have more freedom, open freedom now, to hit social media and put out a new song. And, it's like my new album. I'm putting it up via CD Baby and just letting folks know that it's going to be downloadable off Amazon, or Apple Music or wherever music's sold.
Which I'm going to cut in real quick and just let everybody know that by the time this video comes out, I'm aiming to get it out right around the time that your album comes out.
Oh,
so that
perfect.
way they kind of...
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So just if anybody's, paying attention right now, go and find Johnny's album and pick it up.
Yeah, the new one's actually going to be called The Chatham Sessions because they were done right here in my home in Chatham, Virginia.
Can't think of a more appropriate title.
And 15 cuts, too, man. That's the longest album I've ever done.
Yeah. Wow.
But I think today, Cody, it's just so cool that kids have a bigger platform to make their music, create their music on their own in a home studio, just like I've done, and to get it out there. I don't think labels are necessarily as important, or the quote big record deal.
Yeah.
I don't know if really that's as important now as it used to be. But then again, I still have to say that I just encourage kids to be creative. Get a Focusrite 2i2 and a computer and plug your guitar into it and go, man. Start being creative.
Sure.
And, because that's really the thing, man. I think also, just twisting this a little bit.
Sure.
I think the one thing I worry about, in watching the new generation come forth, and gosh, man, it makes me laugh because even these kids come to me for lessons. Mr. Hiland, can you? I'm like, oh God, am I Mr. Hiland already? I mean, I know I'm getting gray in my beard, man, but
when did that happen?
Right. But to be honest with you, man, I think there is so much technology out there today. Kids are into video games and all this, technology. Even like when the guitar game came out, Guitar Hero or whatever it was, it's like all these kids. One kid got a lesson with me last week, and he's like, well, man, you can play better guitar than me, but I bet I'd whoop your butt on Guitar Hero. And I said, well, you probably will, because I won't be able to see to do it. But I think what's scary, man, is we have to find new ways of inspiring kids to pick up an actual instrument and play. And, of course, I take it upon myself as a chicken picker, trying to keep the chicken picking style alive, because obviously country music is not sporting that right now. Most people are like, oh, man, it's a dying art form. No, it's not.
No.
It's very much alive.
Yeah.
But, I'm really, on the other hand, very happy that some of these kids are coming to me with, Telecasters going, Mr. Hiland, I want to learn that. I want to learn who Don Rich was and who James Burton was. And I'm like, what do you mean was? James Burton's still around. He's a dear friend. I love him. But, it's getting these kids hip to the things that inspired me when I was young, and the different genres. It's fun to hear a kid listen to Jimmy Bruno for the first time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Go, oh, man, that dude's insane,
Right.
or Les Paul and Chet Atkins together. Or, so it's amazing that, so in one breath I'm saying I'm worried about kids playing real instruments, but in the next breath, it's been amazing that kids have been coming to me for help and for inspiration.
Yeah.
So I've been pretty blessed by that.
That's excellent. One thing that we haven't really touched on yet, and it makes sense that we haven't, because for anybody watching this in the future, you see I'm wearing a mask. It's September 2020, and live shows aren't really happening. But let's talk about live shows for a second, because before all of this started, part of your income was still performing and teaching clinics.
Yes.
When we talk about live performances, you spent a large number of years of your career doing live performances as part of the Don Kelly Band and, the Johnny Hiland Band, of course, and that sort of thing. What are some of the things that you look for instance, in a band that you're making out of the musicians?
Brother, just killer musicianship, first and foremost. Professionality, how the person conducts themselves, how they, do they have any habits, bad habits, that kind of thing, But honestly, man, I think one of the biggest, most important things in finding the right band members is how much do they have passion-wise for music? I've seen guys that love to go play their show, but they don't touch their guitar till the next show, or they don't want to hear. I've actually had bandmates that you get in the van and after the show's over, you're all pumped and excited, and you've made fans happy, and it's been great to see them and play for them. And then the first thing they say is when you get in the van or whatever you're traveling in, don't turn that radio on. And you're like, what? Dude, I'm pumped. I want to hear some, and especially, man, if you go out and play a country show like I do.
Yeah.
I mean, man, sometimes instead of popping in Merle Haggard coming home, I want to pop in like, Zeppelin or Hendrix or
Sure.
one of my new favorite bands is Rival Sons, man. I love those guys.
Yeah.
So sometimes it might be just a whole different genre that you want to hear coming home.
Right.
But
Palate cleanser a little bit.
What's that?
A palate cleanser.
Oh, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
And it just gives you something else to chew on
Mm-hmm.
musically.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, I just find that I'm either listening or playing constantly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now of course I've been into mixing my own record with Kenny but I will say, guys, it's finding the right band members, you know, are important. But you know, we were also talking about, you know, having pet peeves.
Yeah,
And,
that's where I was going to go next. Let's go there.
You know, it's funny, man, because being in Nashville, a lot of times what would happen is you would be thrown into a gig.
Yeah.
Where you were playing with musicians that aren't, quote, in your band, but you got hired for a gig and you go do it. Well, you know, the funny thing is, man, as you were mentioning what our topics would be a bit today, I was like, pet peeves. Well, do I really have any? And then I thought, you know, yeah, I guess I do, man. When you're setting up your rig on stage and you see someone next to you that's setting up a steel or a fiddle or whatever the case may be, and they're getting a tone, but yet they have not tuned their instrument yet. Oh, brother, I'll tell you what, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. I just can't, you know, that's one pet peeve. The other pet peeve for me would be, you know, is the person griping before the gig.
Okay.
I can't believe it's a 4-hour show. Oh my God, I'm only making $50. You know what? That's a turnoff, all right. You know, that's one of the biggest turnoffs. And then, but I don't really. I think I've learned over the years, though, how to put a lot of my pet peeves aside.
Okay.
And just simply said, I'm on this gig. I accepted the gig. I'm going to be professional, keep my mouth shut, play the show, get paid, and go home. You know. So I think a lot of the times, man, the pet peeves that I used to have that were really strong have kind of left me, and I guess that's just a part of getting older too.
Well, so that's actually probably a good place for us to wrap, because that's almost the exact same thing that Red Volkart told me, which is shut up and play.
Well, you know, man, I guess, you know, I guess in all
sage advice.
That is about as good of advice as you could get from anywhere. Which, by the way, I love Red Volkart, man.
Oh, yeah.
He's been such a dear friend, and of course, always been a fan of his playing, man. And
oh yeah.
Of course, I love your Brent interview too, Cody. I have to say, even while we're on camera.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, it's and I thank you for doing this. You know, folks, I know Cody and I hit on some very sensitive topics, especially with me, but I want folks to realize one of the things that I have to make very clear in this video in talking about the business and about endorsements is I am very proud and honored to be working with the companies that I do. And, you know, in moving, there's been a lot of reasons that those things have happened. I haven't jumped just because I wanted to. There was a major reason behind me moving companies. But I will also let people know that, you know, the name calling and the stuff that happens on YouTube and other platforms is kind of, you know, people can be really cruel.
Yeah.
But I will say this, man, I honor each endorsement. And really, I was an artist that moved to Nashville not knowing really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a session guitar player. I wanted to be a live guitar player. But being legally blind, I didn't want to hinder the rest of the band or make them feel like, oh, well, we got to be careful the blind guy don't fall down the stairs and break his hands before the show. So, you know, I stuck around Nashville doing gigs until I met my first manager and the whole Johnny Hiland band started and my career took off. So in getting back to the endorsement thing, I was a kid that moved to Nashville, man, with $96 in my pocket. You know, I had no money. And, you know, still I'm not a rich guy by no means. I thank God my sweet Kimmy girl, who I love so much and am so blessed to have in my life. We've been married almost 16 years, Cody.
Wow.
But, you know, thank God she works because, you know, music is not a regular paycheck every 2 weeks or every week, you know. So it's been a hard road to hoe. And I have, since day one in my career, I want people to know in talking about endorsements, I have relied on every endorser I have ever had to become the artist I am today. just as much as I've relied on the support from my fans. It's, you know, I wouldn't go on Facebook saying, hey, folks, can you all contribute to my next record if I didn't truly need it. I'm certainly not a person that's just some money-grabbing, you know, money-hungry guy. I'm about as, you know, countrified as anybody could be. I think I'm country as a possum fart, man, to be honest with you. But, you know, I don't lie to people. I don't, I'm about as down-to-earth and honest old country boy as you can get. And so it's like my endorsers. They all know that. They all know that I love them, and I couldn't be Johnny Hiland without them. Yeah. Just as my fans know I couldn't be Johnny Hiland without their support and the love they've shown me too. So it's all a, you know, really, to make an artist takes a massive amount of people, and I mean supportive people, to make it all work. And so I give thanks to you for doing what you're doing in this guitar world as well, man, because we're trying to keep it alive. Yeah. And so all I can say to everybody watching is, if you're a guitar player or you own a guitar and you haven't learned to play yet, play. Learn to play it. So I'm as guitarted as it gets, and I'm an old country boy, Cody, but I do appreciate the support, brother, and I thank you for doing this with me today. And of course, for all you watching, thanks for your continued support. Love you all to death.
Thank you, Johnny.